Hey there, today I am going to show you the easiest way to make a little girl's t-shirt dress. This is such a simple project, even beginner sewers can jump on this one. Let's get started. Alright, to make this sewing project as easy and quick as possible, we are going to grab the top portion for the bodice from just a t-shirt. If you have a t-shirt that maybe your toddler's starting to grow out of, it's a little bit more fitted, or it's too short, this is the ideal project to upcycle that t-shirt. I happened to grab this one at Walmart because I really liked the ruffle effect and I wanted to do something a little dressier so that I could give my 3-year-old the princess dress she was wanting. Alright, now that you have your t-shirt, we need to find a fabric that we want to make the skirt portion out of. I happen to have this in my fabric stash, and of course, Reese fell in love with all the sparkles, perfect for a princess dress. So we're going to get started piecing these two things together for our comfy t-shirt dress. The next thing you're going to need to do is to measure it. If you're not near your toddler or the little one that you happen to be sewing this for, you can eyeball this, I'm sure. But I went ahead and held the shirt up to her so that I could mark out with chalk exactly where I wanted her waistline to be on the skirt. And then I measured her from the neck down for the length that I wanted the skirt to be. And I should also mention I added 1/2 inch for seam allowance because I'm going to do a rolled hemline on the bottom of this skirt when we get to the sewing portion. Okay, just one last thing we need to measure before we get to cutting our panel for the skirt. I wanted to measure the width across the front of the shirt, and then of course you're going to have to multiply that by 2 because you have a front and a back. But I don't want this skirt to be completely straight, so I want some body to it. So with it being about 10 inches across, I'm going to do more like 30 inches of a panel because as you can see here, I'm going to gather this up. So depending on how full you want the skirt, you're going to want to make that probably 3 times that first measurement. It'll make more sense here in just a second. But I'm going to start cutting my panel out and you'll see how much larger it is than the shirt before we get started sewing it on. So as I'm laying this out here along that chalk line, you'll notice it's about 5 inches larger on each side. So when we go to gather that, it will cinch in the waist and then it will be able to match the shirt. Now something else you should probably keep in mind is if the shirt it's very fitted, you might want to go a little bit larger so that it's not too tight on your little one. But this is all very stretchy material and I'm going to add some elastic, so I'm not worried about that in this case. Okay, and right here I'm just making one final cut on the length that I want the skirt. And remember to be sure to add a little bit of a seam allowance. And again, I'm on this particular fabric, I'm going to do a rolled hem, so I gave myself about 1/2 inch to finish that off. Alright, now we are about ready to head to the sewing machine. I have one long panel. You could cut this into a front piece and a back piece and do side seams on both sides of the skirt, but I'm lazy. And so I just did one long panel and I will have one side seam. Hold on just a second. Why does my sewing machine look like this? Someone got out the markers. So since I just have one long panel, the next step for me is to just create one long straight stitch across the top of the skirt so that I can pull on it and gather it in. So when you're starting this stitch, do not back stitch. You don't want to lock it in. You want it to be able to move. So just do one straight stitch across the entire top of that panel. It's going to be really long. If you happen to break your thread like I did, you can start over in the middle. It'll all work out just fine. But while I'm sitting here at the machine, I'm also going to do the opposite side of the panel for the hemline. So as I said earlier, I'm just going to fold this over twice, creating a rolled hem. So I fold it once and then I fold it again so that we have no raw edge showing, and then I just give it a simple straight stitch across the bottom. Straight stitch. That is hard for me to say today, apparently. So now our hemline is fully done too. I like to batch the work while I'm at the machine if I can. And now we're just going to work on gathering up the top of this panel, and that's going to create that gathered full skirt at the end that we need in order to attach it to our dress seamlessly. Now if you're new to sewing, you may not know how to gather. So what you're going to do is the excess thread that came off, you're going to grab just one of them. There should be 2 threads. You have a bobbin thread and you have a top thread. Just grab one of those, and if you delicately pull, it should start to gather for you to create that cinched in look. Now that you have your skirt panel done, this is going to start coming together really quickly. We first want to lay this down on our t-shirt and look at our gathering, make sure it's all going to measure out because this is how we're going to sew this in. Before I go to pinning though, I am going to finish off my one side seam. Again, if you had another side seam, you already have the other side done, but you need to finish the out seam on this side. So I'm just going to pin these together, right sides together, and give it a quick straight stitch so that I can get to the final part. All right, hang in there. This part is the exciting part. This is where it all comes together. So we have our panel in the form of a skirt, and we have our shirt, and we're ready to just attach them together. So what we're gonna do is put right sides together. As you'll see here, the skirt is gonna flip over the top of that t-shirt with the right sides together, the right side of the skirt fabric and the right side of the t-shirt. And you're gonna have a little bit of that tail of the t-shirt hanging out. Now, where the stitch is on your skirt is what you're going to line up with that original chalk mark that we made on the t-shirt. Line it up as best you can on that line that you marked on the t-shirt, and then pin it in place around the t-shirt so that it holds it together for you while you're at the sewing machine. And then lastly, before we head to the sewing machine, I want to get a little bit of a baby elastic for this project too. So I didn't measure exactly on this, but I kind of held the baby elastic up there. It was about 10 inches across this shirt, so I would need 20 to go all the way around, of course, but then it's so stretchy, I made it probably about 18 to 19 inches just to give it a little bit of a cinching effect. If you wanted it a lot more fitted right there, you could go smaller, kind of play with the elastic how you want to there. I'm sorry, I'm not super accurate when it comes to these things, but I just used what I had, and I didn't want it to cinch too much, so I just gave it a tiny little pull as I worked. So I took off that little part of my sewing machine, which makes it a lot easier to fit this on there for a smaller girl's dress. And we have it pinned right now. I'm just adding that little baby elastic as I go. I don't have it pinned down. That way I can kind of pull it as I go. You could pull this and get it pinned in before you start to work, but I find this to be a little bit easier to do it this way. So I have the gathered skirt pinned down, and then I'm just ever so lightly giving that elastic just a little bit of a stretch as I move along that seam, and at the end it is going to make it so much more comfortable and gathered. It's all coming together. I can't wait to show you how this turns out, and Reese absolutely loves it. We've got a little modeling coming up.
This feverish dream. You are holding my hand. I have no clue, don't know what it means, but I know you'll understand.
Didn't it turn out so cute and so simple? You could do this with so many different types of fabrics. You could open this back up and chop off the bottom of that t-shirt, finish it with a serger if you really want to make it look professional. I honestly just left mine like this because I feel like it would just be the most comfortable. And my little girl did not seem to mind one bit with the way it was done. She loved her new sparkly princess dress and had to model it for you guys. And for Daddy, of course. I'm so glad you came to the farmhouse to sew with me today. I hope you enjoyed this little quick and easy tutorial. I hope you'll give it a try. Let me know in the comments below what you're planning on making, and I know I for sure will be making a few more princess dresses soon for my little one. This was such a fun project. You guys have a great week. Subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you again later. Bye-bye.
Sweetheart.